I have to tell you, we have something new to report this hour on a story that I admit we have not spent much time covering before now, even though you have undoubtedly heard a lot about it. Ever since the North Shore Leader, a small newspaper in Long Island, New York, was first to break the news, and then ultimately the New York Times broke it wide open. Ever since those papers started the reporting on a newly elected Republican congressman named George Santos, there's just been a hurricane of coverage about the amazing number of fake stories he appears to have made up about himself, the also amazing number of con jobs he appears to have been involved in his young life. It's just become this astonishing litany. I mean, he apparently lied about where he went to high school. He lied about where he went to college. Then he lied about going to a different college. For one of the colleges he lied about, he also lied and said he was a volleyball star there. Why would you even lie about that? He lied about having an MBA. He lied about working at a Wall Street firm. He lied about working at a Wall Street bank. He lied about being a landlord with more than a dozen properties in his family real estate portfolio. He lied about being the employer of not one, not two, but 4 separate people who he says were killed in the Pulse nightclub shooting in Orlando in 2016. He lied about creating an animal charity. He lied about his mother being in the South Tower at the World Trade Center on 9/11. He lied about his grandparents escaping the Holocaust. He lied about himself being Jewish. He also lied about himself being Ukrainian. I mean, and that's not all, but that's a flavor of it. And it shows you the amount of coverage there's been about this story already. This is, nevertheless, the new Republican congressman from the 3rd Congressional District in New York State. Kevin McCarthy just gave Mr. Santos a seat on the Small Business Committee and also the Committee on Science, Space, and Technology, which shows you just how much the new Republican Congress values those concepts, right? Put George Santos in charge of national policy making on those subjects. Now, to be fair, he did get on the Space Committee by telling Kevin McCarthy he was an astronaut. And I mean, why is there any reason to doubt it? But as I said, this is not a story that I have spent a lot of time on. Mostly, honestly, because it's just had plenty of other coverage from all quarters since it started unspooling in all this astonishing detail. But tonight, I am going to talk about this story for the first time. Tonight, we do, for the first time, actually have something new to add to this story, video that we have obtained exclusively in which Republican Congressman George Santos adds yet another astonishing claim to his big, long list of all the rest of them. We have obtained video in which Congressman George Santos says he is the victim of an attempted murder that resulted in him being put under police protection because the murderer might come back for him after missing him the first time. Also, he says in this video that someone stole his shoes in the middle of 5th Avenue in New York City, specifically at the corner of 55th Street and 5th Avenue at 3 p.m. Somebody took his shoes. Not the same people who were trying to murder him. Apparently that was separate, but who can say? In any case, that's coming up tonight. We will have that for you. Wall Street fortune and all that stuff, right? But here's something you have not heard before. Did you know that Congressman George Santos also claims he was the target of an assassination attempt, which required him being put under official police protection? That is what George Santos claimed last month in an interview with a Brazilian podcast. The podcast is called Radio Novelo Apresenta. Forgive my pronunciation. Radio Novelo Apresenta. They shared this video from the interview exclusively with us. So you won't see this anywhere else, but I want you to see it. In this interview, then Congressman-elect George Santos is speaking with the hosts in Portuguese. So we have subtitled it. He starts off talking about an alleged act of vandalism, which he says was targeted at him simply because he's a Republican. But then in the midst of that, he says, oh, also someone tried to murder him.
Em janeiro de 2021, minha casa sofreu vandalismo. Meu marido e eu, a gente tinha ido para uma festa de fim de ano, em 2020, na Flórida. Vou para uma festa de Réveillon com meu marido, a gente volta, a nossa casa foi vandalizada porque a gente estava numa festa republicana na Flórida, em dezembro de 2020. Então, é aquilo. Eu já sofri vandalismo, a gente já sofreu atentado de vida, atentado de assassinato, carta ameaçadora, ter polícia, escolta de polícia parado na frente da nossa casa.
We have already suffered an attempt on my life, an assassination attempt. There was an assassination attempt, really. Then Congressman-elect George Santos did not elaborate on his claim in the interview. We have tonight reached out to Congressman Santos's office to get more information about him saying that he was the victim of an attempted murder, getting New York police protection at his home as a result. There ought to be a record of that sort of thing if it happened. We've inquired about this claim from him. We have not heard back. We do live in hope. Mr. Santos did offer more detail about a different act of violence he says was committed against him. In this interview with the same Brazilian podcast, he said he was the victim of a very, very, very brazen mugging in the middle of the day, in the middle of New York, one of New York City's busiest thoroughfares.
No verão de 2021, no meio da Quinta Avenida, com a 55, eu fui assaltado por dois homens, antes que qualquer pergunte, não foram negros, eram brancos, inclusive, mas eles me assaltaram, levaram minha pasta, levaram o meu sapato e meu relógio. E isso foi na luz do dia. Eram 3:00 da tarde, eu estava saindo do meu escritório, indo para a garagem, pegar meu carro, e eu fui assaltado. A minha casa foi violada,
Eles arrancaram seu sapato em plena Quinta Avenida.
Sim, em plena Quinta Avenida. E o pior de tudo não foi isso, ninguém fez nada. Ninguém fez nada. O medo é real, é surreal que a gente vive aqui.
It is surreal what we live through here. Yes, surreal is one word for it. I love that the podcast host interrupts him there. Santos says, it was 3 p.m. I was leaving my office, going to the garage, getting my car, and I was mugged. They robbed me, took my briefcase, took my shoes and my watch. The host then interrupts him and says, they stole your shoes in the middle of Fifth Avenue? Really? The podcast hosts actually say they later asked George Santos for the police report for his mugging on the corner of Fifth Avenue and 55th Street at 3 p.m. in the middle of the day when they took, among other things, his shoes. But they say they never heard back from him when they asked for the police report. We have also asked Congressman Santos's office for that police report. We will let you know if we hear anything. We've also put in a records request with the NYPD for any police report that matches what Mr. Santos described. We live in hope. But perhaps the most magnificent moment of this interview comes when Congressman Santos tries to explain to these podcast hosts why it is that he personally takes such a hard line toward undocumented immigrants when he himself comes from a family of immigrants. Watch.
Por isso que eu sou assiduamente crítico de pessoas que querem iniciar o seu sonho americano e aquela jornada e querem ensinar ela de forma errônea. Eu acho assim, os Estados Unidos foi criado em imigração, foi criado em imigração, em diversidade. Eu incentivo extremamente as pessoas que querem vir para cá a fazer, mas eu também incentivo que isso seja feito de forma correta. Porque eu acho assim, imagina você iniciar um relacionamento com uma mentira, ou com fazendo uma coisa errada, né? Então eu acho que não é beneficente nem para mim, nem para você, né, nesse relacionamento. Então eu também
I'm assiduously critical of people who want to start their American dream the wrong way. Imagine starting a relationship with a lie. Imagine starting a relationship with a lie. Imagine how awful that would be. Because, of course, he would never lie. Your Republican Congress at work. Republican Congressman George Santos. We will be right back.